Hey there, YouTubers. So, I'm going to tell you war stories from being a Python teacher. One from adult world, and by war story, I don't mean anything really except the kind of story you might tell over and over. And I would say embellish a bit, but I'm not going to be that exciting. I'm not actually embellishing. It's just when you do a live teaching session, one thing is things can go wrong if you don't have everything on rails. It's not nailed down like a theme park ride, and even those have their hiccups, right? So I'm sharing a Django application that I wrote. It's very simple. I'm going to fire it up here in a sec and show you what it does. It's very similar to my Flask web application. But in order to show how to install Django using the Conda installer, I went ahead and upgraded from 2.1 to 2.2 and didn't think much of it. It's like, oh, that's going to be fine. And later in the evening, you can see a few minutes later, I upgraded my version of Pillow, which is something completely different from Django. It has to do with showing graphics in Python. It's called Python Image Lab under the surface. Okay, so I realized that that was a mistake because my Django application then broke. It would not run. It was really needed 2.1 and not 2.2. So how do I rewind? How do I go backwards? And I found the double dash revision, install double dash revision 38. I could get a list of my revisions and then say, I want to go back to here, which means undoing the upgrade to the Django. Later in the evening, because some of my students were just installing Django for the first time, I walked them through, I think, the useful exercise of how to downgrade, how to uninstall Django 2.2 and instead install 2.1, just for the purposes of running my version, my particular thing. Because 2.2 is the newest, but 2.1 is still maintained. It's not even like out of official, it is officially maintained still. It's not like on the shelf old at this point in time, October 2019. So I'm okay with using the older one. And how you start is you just say Python manage.py run server. And that's telling the manage.py is part of the Django framework. And it looks up the settings, which is a whole nother file, settings py, and that's where you tell it what's the database, what's the middleware, and it starts out fine just today, right? So now what do I have to do? I have to just go to this web address, and I can show you how basically it works. There's a company that I'm teaching for that I put welcome, and then I can change the URL by putting at the end of it LM and then /H for hydrogen, or do I want to spell it out elements? I think that's what I have to do, and there's hydrogen. I don't know how well you can see all this, but AU for gold and HG, and I can also do airports. So if I put airport instead of element, airport, and put like PDX for Portland's, voila, and so forth. So that's Django, and the war story was getting it to downgrade back from 2.2 to 2.1. That was semi-exciting, right? And so here, it's useful if you're in that. See, one of the hardest parts in the Python world of using Python is just the whole, in general in computing, the dependencies nightmare. I'm taking a course now from, I think it's Mr. Bader on the internet, a free course in just that issue, because there are quite a few installer worlds, like pip and conda are two of them, right? So in the Codesters world, I encourage you as an adult, even if you're new to Python, don't make it beneath your dignity to study how kids learn Python today. Just like if you were going to learn Chinese for the first time or English for the first time, you might go to the literature that they use to teach their own kids, like how do English speakers learn English, the first language, those materials for the kids, how do they learn? Why not learn the way they do? And so this Sprite Code here or this Codester's code is a sort of a dialect of Python that revolves around being able to create and manipulate sprites, which are like the actors against the background, against the stage. It's like theater. You're doing theater here. You're scripting the actions of actors, like a puppet show, and here's where you watch the action. So it's pretty straightforward in that regard. And you can wire up different keys to do different things. So in this more advanced version, version 2, I'm actually listening for up and down keys. Let's see, what other keys do I care about here? It looks like the space bar maybe. I'm listening for down, I'm listening for up, and I'm listening for click on 17. That's because I've got a global looping variable that has to be start out true somewhere. Where do I set looping to anything? This looks like it's going to crash if I don't set looping. Oh, there, it's down there. Okay, got it. The click function isn't a loop, that's just a function. And when I click, it's going to run the click function and turn looping from whatever it used to be to false. But here's where I set it to true. Only at the very end of the program do I dare go into this loop, now that I've defined everything I need to get out of it eventually. My end game is planned out, and these are the events that I'm going to use to both change the interval between when I shoot off sprites, i.e. UFOs, or I can raise or lower the interval between release of a new UFO. So if I'm hitting the down key quite a few times, and you'll see the UFOs get further because I've given more of an interval, right? The interval, the wait interval, I can extend that by hitting the down or up arrow. But I can still hit click, and does that stop the sprites from coming? It does. Anyway, this is the very interesting sandbox that I use to teach kids. And so that's kind of two ends of the spectrum age-wise, you might say. Django for the grown-ups, and there's a lot, of course, of source code to plow into here. Getting it up and running is not the big trick. Getting the version to match, that was a challenge, and I did it all live in front of the students, and I thought that was a good example of what real world is like in terms of dependencies and breaking something and fixing it. All right, I'm going to let you get back to it. Thanks for listening. Oh, one last thing. Shout out to Alan Taylor. He's at Wanderers. Wanderers is a group that meets in the Linus Pauling House, which is where the two-time Nobel Prize winner, chemist, well known for his vitamin C work, but really that was just one tiny part of his full resume as to what he discovered and contributed to. He lived when they were trying to decipher how DNA worked, and he had some proposals. He was just trying to get his hat in the ring there. That was the gold that everyone was shooting for. And had he got that visa and he was being kind of watched by the government because he was spilling the beans on how harmful radiation really was, even just the testing, so-called. It really was hurting people's survival chances. And the government was, rather that we just be the docile guinea pigs we were being and not raise a fuss about our own lifetimes, right? That's like just getting in the way of their projects. So Pauling was being sort of hounded there by some bureaucrats who really wanted to continue the regime of let's make Americans into guinea pigs. So this is a lifetime of fun with Wanderers, but now I don't even know the code, right? There's a secret code on the door here that didn't used to be there. Like that's the old thing, and I used to have a key and all that, but now we have this fancy code thing, and I don't know the code, so I don't feel like I'm any longer as involved as I used to be, but I sure had an interesting time doing all this. This has been a great adventure. Thank you to Terry Bristol and Don Wardwell and everybody else for all those good times. All right. See you later, guys.